Yo, what's going on, everybody? Is Florida getting overpopulated? Let's go ahead, let's watch the video and find out. Of course, the original video will be in the link in the description below.
This is Florida, the 27th U.S. state, and the second most vacationed place in all of America. It's the home of Walt Disney World, Universal Studios, South Beach, Miami, Key West, and the Kennedy Space Station, uniquely and distinctly different from even the states that surround it, as Florida is located in the southeastern United States.
Yeah, guys, being in Florida, we get all sorts of walks of life, man. That Florida crazy man, that Florida man meme, that's real for a reason. We get some wild people that come to Florida from all over the United States. So I'm really interested to see what kind of overpopulation problem we might have here. Let's go ahead, let's get into it.
United States, but doesn't fit in with the kind of culture or geography you typically see in the South or East. See, the picturesque Florida Peninsula, which is surrounded by warm Gulf waters and the Atlantic Ocean, with the nation's lowest topography, really is in a league of its own. In fact, with 22.3 million residents, Florida is its own mega region, important to American agriculture, logistics, and tourism.
Yeah, man, it's pretty wild being in Florida. You guys, it's really like its own country down here. I know a lot of people would talk about New York or California, and yeah, great. Those are definitely different places. But in Florida, man, you're like in Cuba and in Georgia at the same time. You get the country people, you get the Mexicans and Hispanics and all types of everything. And it's a it's a pretty eclectic group of people down here, let me tell you. It's one of the allures of Florida for sure, is the fact that it is so different. Like, we just passed a law. You don't even need a license to conceal carry anymore. I mean, I personally find that kind of crazy, but I have my concealed, so it is what it is.
Florida megalopolis or megaregion is anchored by the state's four biggest cities, Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami, and Tampa. But Florida as a state, a megaregion, or even just an idea, is changing, and maybe not in the ways that you'd expect. No, the perception of Florida as this place with mild winters where the elderly retire, with top-notch amenities that attract families for vacation, and a level of business friendliness that turned to
the old people, man. Let me tell you, the old people, they get real snippety down here, man. They don't play around. They don't like to be told what to do or how to do it, or that they're doing it too slow, man. They're just in their world of their own. But let's keep going.
Giant swamp into an urban oasis. Well, it's changed. Or at least it's changing. Because while Florida is still all of those things, it's also become something vastly different. And there are several reasons for that. For Florida's dramatic transition.
I just want to quickly pause right there because, you know, they just showed a picture of the homeless, or a little small clip of the homeless, and that's something that's really becoming a huge problem down here, is homeless people. Now, in Clearwater, I don't really know what they're doing differently, but you definitely see less homeless. Now, of course, where there's more money, usually less homeless, so you go to the more impoverished areas and you'll definitely start to see that problem spike a little bit more. You know, it's a give and a take. It's comes with the territory of bringing so many people because of the previous, you know, world climates, but also having warm climate. People in the winter don't need to go find a shelter or, you know, necessarily worry about that. It's hot all year round, and that kind of facilitates a little bit more homelessness in my mind, at least. What do you do to counteract that? Not do what California's doing, that's for sure. All right, let's get back into it.
From an agricultural state mostly covered by sparsely populated rural areas into this densely populated state of massive growth that economically dominates the Southeast, with 23 Fortune 500 companies and a gross state product of more than $1 trillion. It mostly comes down to this business and
You know, that's crazy, $1 trillion. I always tell my coworkers have come from car sales and sales in general, but we're kind of recession proof here in Florida, especially in the Clearwater area. Selling cars, especially because we don't have a major public transport system, so everybody needs a car. Therefore, selling cars, as long as you have a dealership that has inventory, you're always going to be able to sell a car. In New York, you got subways, buses, you know, taxis. You have many ways of public transportation. We don't have that down here. So you really get a slightly recession proof industry, at least in that area. Now, when it comes to real estate as well, we've been notoriously recession proof, or we get and feel the recession a lot less. Now, why is that? Tourism, the fact that our weather is so great, so it's always bringing a new type of person, whether that be an old person, a person that's young and finally getting their career started, so they want to come to a place that's a little bit more money oriented, a lot more opportunity, uh, and then you have old people that are getting tired of the cold every year. New old people. So Florida is definitely a unique place when it comes to something like that.
Happens where a place is affordable and desirable, which attracts more people and businesses, which leads to increased development, attracting even more people and even more businesses. Until you're suddenly overtaking New York as the nation's third most populated
That's
state, which is
crazy,
what happened
guys.
with Florida back in 2014. Obviously, I skipped a few.
And that's before everything that happened. And Florida being Florida, we didn't really follow the rules. That seems to be a very common thing here in Florida. Is we don't like to follow the common normal trends of the governing United States of America. We like to do things how we like to do it on our own rule, with no one else's outside say. Uh, and you saw that during the pandemic. We were open a lot of the time. I can't say that I was really shut down or locked down. Now, granted, were there less places to go? Yeah, you couldn't really go to a restaurant and in the height of everything, but you could still go out. I was working through the pandemic. I was actually the only one in my company getting overtime during that time, so I was interacting the whole time, and I really didn't get sick. Again, I'm a healthy young guy. I don't really want to get into that, but let's keep going.
Few steps there in outlining Florida's rise to success and prominence, and that was intentional because there's something even more important to this story. The kind of growth happening in Florida doesn't just happen in a vacuum, and it's changing the state profoundly, especially for those 22.3 million people who call it home. Florida ranked first in the nation for the rate of rent increases in 2022.
Oh, baby, yeah, we definitely saw a dramatic increase in rent. I mean, I went from paying my first apartment was a 2-2 right on the water. It was under $1,000 a month. My last apartment was a 2-2, granted a loft, a little bit bigger. I was paying like $2,500 a month. I mean, that's a huge increase just over a couple years, and the wages hasn't really necessarily increased down here, but you can't really buy, and it's not really a good time to rent. So it definitely throws us in a little bit of a predicament being down here in Florida.
And it's currently ranked first again here in 2023 with an average statewide rental price of $2,128
See what
per
I mean?
month. Traffic has become a
Crazy.
nightmare, with Florida cities accounting for 7 of the 10 worst U.S. daily commutes, according to a recent study.
Hey, right
and
there's my
Florida's
area.
already historically dreadful economic equality has further deteriorated in recent years, with the top 1% of residents there earning 39.5 times as much as the other 99% of residents combined.
Wow.
And massive population growth and overpopulation is a major factor in this decline of livability for Florida's middle and working classes, placing the state's economic miracle in real jeopardy for perhaps the first time. Now, I'm not saying that Florida has already reached the point of overpopulation, though many residents certainly are, but if you look
Yeah, guys, I mean, uh, there's not a lot that I can argue with here. It is getting kind of ridiculous with the overpopulation. We're getting all these northern and western states that are coming in, and they got cash, baby. They just sold their house for extraordinary prices, and they're coming down here and buying it up cash, usually over asking price, and that's where it starts to get a really worrying, you know? All right, let's keep it moving here.
Look here on the chart, you can see that the state's population growth is only expected to grow in coming years. And that's a problem, because all population growth isn't a good thing or even equal. That's to say, the accelerated population growth happening in Florida has come entirely out of migration and immigration, not natural factors. In fact, Florida's net neutral population growth has
Miami's starting to go underwater too. So I don't listen. If you guys move into Florida, Miami's a wild breed, but there are also floods. It also floods a lot. You know, that's something that is kind of undeniable.
been in the negative. So, without the 1,100 people a day moving there, Florida's population would actually be on the decline, as Florida lost 40,216 residents last year when not accounting for migration. That's why Florida has changed so much in recent years. There are less of the people who used to live there living there, and more people from other places making up its population base, amplifying the already difficult effects that go along with population growth.
I do want to say that when I was selling, when I was selling cars, especially, I got a lot of northern people. I got the few from California, Nevada area, but a lot of it was from Pennsylvania. My ex was from Pennsylvania, New York. All the cold, wet, just kind of miserable states end up coming here. They also saw major lockdowns and restrictions. So coming to a state that's warm with a lot more freedom, who's going to argue that?
Growth, as more people means more congestion, more strain on the grid, and more social spending, or to paraphrase the late notorious B.I.G., more people, more problems. To put it another way, if Florida is the fastest growing state, and it is, and that growth is coming from other places, which it is, then where are all those people coming from? Because when enough people move from one place to another place, those places will start to share some real similarities. 28% of Florida's growth has come out of Texas, 15% from New York.
Wow, Texas. That's surprising me because I heard Texas is getting a huge influx of new residents. So that's very interesting to hear that we're getting a lot of Texans. Now, I wonder if that's because a lot of the people going or migrating into Texas are a little bit more on the libertarian side and less conservative, where Florida notoriously has been more of a conservative style state. Now I definitely see that changing, but I'm also starting to see a lot of my friends that were born and raised here move out to Colorado, Texas, and leaving Florida, that's another interesting thing, which was just mentioned right here. This is a great video.
And 6% from California, according to the National Association of Realtors. That's important because a place like New York has very little in common with a place like Florida. And with millions of new residents, many of them coming from places like New York and California, it's clearly having an impact not just on Florida's norms and traditions, but also the socioeconomic reality of a state that's always struggled with its median income to cost of living ratio.
Some families even survive with kids and whatever. With administrative changes, things.
That's another great point. Is there was a point in my past relationship where I was the income, and granted, making six figures sounds great in Royal USA, but in Clearwater, Florida, with two kids and a stay-at-home mom, it's very hard, even making six figures. And granted, it was low six figures, just breaking it, but I'm also 26, so that's great money at that time, or in my time, at my age. Let alone, you bring it back to the 50s where the American dream was kids, wife, and they got to stay at home while you worked and you came home and you spent time with your family, not having to worry about where your next meal was going to come from, or where your bills were going to come from and how you were going to pay them. So it's very interesting to see that everything is going up in price, groceries, rent, blah, 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 but where's the income going up at? Where's that increase coming from? It's not coming from anywhere, and the job opportunity is going to start decreasing the more people come into the state, so it's an interesting predicament we're in.
things may return halfway back to the way that they were.
For now, people in Southwest Florida will continue to budget and find ways to navigate.
With the state growing by more than 35% since just the 2000s, and with the people moving
number,
there
guys.
coming from places with much higher median wages and home prices, as wealthy residents from more expensive states are looking to take advantage of Florida's
And that's what
lower
I'm talking
taxes
about.
and better
Oh, that's a
affordability,
huge point,
making
guys.
cash offers
No state tax. I mean, we get such an influx of tourism that we don't really have to worry about that, which God bless Florida for that. I mean, that's a beautiful, beautiful thing about our state, which every state should have. I know every state can't have that because they need that extra income to supply the local governments and everything like that and facilities. But I mean, imagine being in New York where they're taking your state tax, your federal taxes, and your wages is cut in half at payday. I mean, that's wild. I can't even imagine trying to survive off of that, let alone the increase in living cost. All right, let's keep moving forward here.
on nice homes in the best neighborhoods of cities like Orlando and Tampa, while the Florida middle class falls even further behind. As
That
unchecked
sucks.
growth there is having a real effect on housing availability, environmental sustainability, and access to public amenities. Now, I'm not saying that unparalleled growth has to be a bad thing or that it goes without obvious benefits. Homeowners in Florida have already seen an incredible rise in the value of their property. In fact, if you look here on the chart,
Now, granted, we've seen a huge increase, like my grandmother's house, the house that I'm actually recording in. She built it, or we built it back in, the late 90s, and I think she paid like $50,000-$60,000, and it's almost a $500,000 home at this point. But what are you gonna go into if you sell it? You can't really go into another house. Condos are notoriously cheaper, but they have a huge HOA fee, so it kind of offsets it, especially if you're not working going into your older ages. You don't want to have to worry about an HOA fee that can continuously be increased year after year. It's kind of, pointless. So, yeah, this is very true.
you can see how Florida has made so many new millionaires in recent years. It's almost easy. When single-family home prices go from $136,000 in 2010 to nearly $400,000 today,
go.
and the unemployment rate in Florida is just 2.6%, all while taxes have remained low and business regulations have done the impossible. They got even more lenient, and development has seemingly become Florida's manifest destiny, with businesses like Citadel.
It's that's another crazy thing when you come to Florida that I didn't really realize while I was traveling through other states is the road work and construction work in Florida is on another fucking level. That's on another level. I mean, it's wild to see these construction sites for road work. And when I was in, driving through, I don't know, North Carolina or whatever, it's like a 6-man crew. Down here, it's 100 minimum, and they got 4-lane highways, 2 lanes blocked off, and for miles of stretches, it's just work crews, and the scale of our construction and just scale in everything we do down here. I mean, we might as well be South Texas down here. Everything's bigger and better in Florida, baby. Let's go.
Long and LeverX relocating there, and business operations like Spotify, BlackRock, and Goldman Sachs opening new offices, alongside startup successes in Miami and Tampa, hundreds of miles of new high-speed light rail tracks, and endless roadway construction, not to mention what feels like every chain restaurant in existence, and
That's
new
very
luxury
true.
shopping centers like this one popping up all over the state. But while the ostentatiousness of Florida's upper class appears unmatched, the economic reality for everybody else is a lot more complicated. As Florida's working class, the ones that keep the state running, isn't booming at all.
Nah, it's
Florida
getting hard,
ranks
man.
45th out of all 50 states in terms of wages, with the 2022 median income there being in line with less
Guys, 45 out of 50. Come on now. Come on now. But everything's getting more expensive. All right, let's keep it rocking and rolling.
prosperous states like Kentucky
Oops.
Kansas, and Alabama, while the institutions that regular Floridians depend on most, like schools, healthcare, and social services, are already completely swamped. That's
Yeah.
how Florida has, in many ways, come to represent a concerning trend where far too many hardworking families end up living in pay-by-the-week hotels while working
See a
full-time
lot
at
of
some of the
these.
world's
You see a
best-known
lot of these.
corporations like Disney, keeping Florida's labor pipeline full and the bank accounts of its working class empty.
Wow, guys, what a great video that was. I mean, they really touched on a lot of good points. You got BlackRock and uh, Vanguard. You got, the Warren Buffett, uh, whatever his company is, coming down and just buying up all the real estate, undeveloped land, farming. I mean, Bill and Melinda Gates, I think, own the most farms in America. I mean, it's a large amount of property, just waiting to be sold and develop on. Um, Especially in Florida, you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of Californians, a lot of Texans, a lot of these outside people come in and really start to overpopulate and take over the economy down here. I mean, it's definitely a problem that we're seeing in Florida, but there's one place that I would not want to be, and that's not in Florida. I love Florida. I always want to be in Florida, and that's something that I'm very grateful for. So let's go ahead. Let's see who this channel was. Something Different Films. Go ahead. Go check them out. The link will be in the description below. Guys, thank you so much. My first video, again, my name is Joseph. 26 years old out here in Florida. Let's go ahead. Let's keep these videos rocking and rolling, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.